who is he's an independent, he's registered independent. She's a school teacher, and I had her fill out this form.
Who just filled out an application.
Person? Okay, great.
Yep. Oh, good.
So she is, I'd asked her to apply to the website, the regular.
Oh, okay. She's, so I think, Mark, you were on email, someone who needed a phone call. I don't know who's on that one. Is that just the me, you, and Heather one? I don't know. Somebody emailed the Affordable Housing Committee, and then Jean got involved, and
Oh, I saw an email from Jeannie that you said you were calling first.
right,
It
and
wasn't her?
it was her, but the number was wrong.
Oh,
It was.
So we.
so that's handled.
She wants to attend the meeting, and she also applied.
This woman was just here.
Yes,
Okay,
Yeah, she's
so
talking to Jeannie
she's talking to Jeannie about her application.
Oh, okay,
to make sure it's.
Yeah.
Correct.
good. Tight little group of work, okay. Hi, Jen. And Heather, you're making it, huh?
Undercover,
Undercover.
Undercover, I would say cover, yeah, flu is not
just
great.
listening in.
Oh, you sound bad, Heather.
Yeah, I
I'm
know.
Sorry.
You're gonna be out all week, right?
Heather, we won't ask you to give the speech then, okay?
But yeah, I won't make it through. I can't stop coughing, so just
Man.
listening in to stay up to date over here.
Okay.
I'll tell you what, Heather, that's commitment. I love it.
She's.
Never wants to miss a meeting. She's got a perfect record so far.
That's
Better than
right.
that. Oh, okay, I will, let's see, maybe we can take some notes.
It's gonna be hard.
Yeah. Shouldn't be. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order at 4:05 p.m. We have approval of the minutes of February 5th, which have been distributed. So posted on the town website. Are there any additions, corrections? All those in favor of accepting the minutes of February 5?
Aye.
Aye. So, since we have no one here from the public at the moment, we will skip the public. Jen, you want to kind of give us a report? I mean, some of the stuff you've already told me, but I would appreciate it just for the record if you just kind of like take us through what's happened since we sent the presentation, the presentation to you and you sent it on to the board.
Yeah, sure thing. I actually had a sit down with Peggy this afternoon, and we were hammering out the possible date for you guys to come and give that presentation. And it looks like we can, I would say, reserve Monday, April 28th. That's the last Monday in April for you guys to be able to come and give your affordable housing presentation.
Okay.
And I have passed that presentation on to all of our Board of Select members. I have not received any feedback from them at this time, but you know, one of the things that Peggy and I talked about today was to, and it's in the presentation I told her, is, you know, definitely bring that idea of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund forward at that meeting. And I told her, I said, that's already included in your presentation. So we've got that covered. And then the other thing we're going to do for you guys is give a more comprehensive rundown of all of the things from the affordable housing plan that are currently being worked on. You know, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised to see how many things are underway from that action item list that's in the document. We have facilities committee working on a bunch of stuff. We have our planning and zoning commission working on updating their zoning regulations, and that's a big piece of our affordable housing concept as well. So I would say definitely make sure that you are connecting with Carol Snow from planning and zoning to make sure that you're advocating for any sort of affordable housing components that you would like them to take under consideration as they are updating their planning and zoning regulations.
Well, you give us some advice there. I think, should we send the presentation to Carol as well? mean, I'm
I think
happy
that's a
to-
great idea.
And how about what is the committee that's looking at the buildings? What is? I
The
can't remember.
facilities committee, yeah.
Will they be involved as well?
Well, not so much with that. What our facilities committee is doing is looking to identify the town parcels or physical buildings, identifying, are they being best utilized? Are they pieces that maybe the town doesn't need any longer? And would they be suitable for housing, or would they be suitable for some other sort of development? But I do know from talking to Peggy today, she doesn't want them to get in the mix with what type of housing should go into a parcel that they think would be appropriate for housing. She wants that to be more of a discussion for planning and zoning and Board of Selectmen, and using the recommendations that you guys are bringing forward for affordability into that picture. She doesn't want the facilities committee to get into the weeds with what should be affordable, what should just be
Yeah.
housing in general.
I think that's very appropriate. They should not do that. But
Yeah.
we were given information that we should be working more closely with that group, but it sounds like they are doing an entirely different thing than what we're doing, and that really isn't a whole lot of.
Right. Yeah, they're looking at more of a broad view of what is available in town and its best utilization, as opposed to getting into the weeds of what exactly should go there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Jane, Francine, any comments? Give you a chance to.
No.
No?
We kind of had an idea what they were working on when we met with them in August.
Yeah,
Did you want to get to that?
yeah, they didn't, I think, the chair of the
I
committee
don't-
even said
Yeah, yeah.
that they're not really, they're just looking at they're just trying to see what's being used on buildings and stuff. There could be like more efficient use or whatever.
Yeah.
He said right out that they weren't involved in any deciding what would happen, like housing or anything like that. So I think Jane and I felt like there was really no more reason for us to get together with them.
Mhm.
No, just to keep them up to
Yeah,
date.
we could
If
certainly let
anything were
them
to come
know.
out of our committee that was substantial or that pointed to any particular properties.
Well, why don't we send them a copy of the presentation, FYI?
Yeah,
just so
sure,
they have it.
absolutely.
And I know they are going to be coming and presenting to the Board of Selectmen, I think on March 24th. That's the facilities committee. So you guys may be able to even exchange presentations with each other, because they'll be presenting on the work they've done thus far with any properties identified and that sort of thing. So
Yeah, that will be a final report or from the facilities or not? I mean, that's just.
I don't think it's necessarily a final report. I think it's just an update on progress.
Okay,
Jen, do you think that it's a good idea for someone to go to that meeting where facilities is presenting?
I think it could be, for sure. Let me get I'll touch base with Peggy again and just see, or maybe I can even just ask her to make sure the presentation gets sent out to you guys as well, and then you can determine if it's something that you feel you need to attend in person or remotely, because it will be at a Board of Select meeting. So even if you're not able to attend at that time, we'll have the recordings as well.
and that's March, what was that date again? March 20?
24.
Jen, do you know if that April meeting is your morning meeting or your night meeting?
Our night meeting.
Hope we're the last one on the agenda. That will make it easy for us. Send out for cookies. I bring up cookies a lot. I'm sorry. I should do that.
I like cookies.
It's in my head. Yeah. Well, thanks, Jenna. Any comments, questions? And I'm sorry, I did not meet you on the way in. I am Mark
I'm
Anderson.
sorry, I was running around. My name is Lauren Geary, and I only here to listen in. I was wanting to hopefully join your committee. So I filled out the paperwork and I was,
That's what you're doing down there, yeah.
Yeah. yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know you guys.
Okay, well, I'm the chairman right now, anyway.
And
Francine, introduce yourself.
I'm Francine Larson. Hi.
and I'm Jane Scenario. Nice to meet you. And I'm sorry, your name?
And I'm Mark Edmiston.
Nice to meet you all.
And
I'm
we have
happy
two other
to
members of the committee. That one is a fellow named Anthony Pamplo. And Anthony is, has a very high job at the New Haven Health as a
Right.
security person, and just got a call from him earlier today saying he couldn't make it today. And Peter Meyer is another one, and he's been in the hospital, I guess. So we're doing kind of surgery. So, right now, we have 5 members. 7 members is the authorized number of people. And, we have been working for the past 2 years now, 2+ years, in trying to understand what are the issues that Madison has in terms of affordable housing, and what are the steps that could be applied to make it more, to facilitate the building of. Now, this, we also recognize that the 830G thing, which everybody talks about, which is this rule that says that builders can come in and they can build by right if they are building affordable housing or including affordable housing. And this is an issue across the state. I mean, everybody has problems with it. In smaller towns like Madison or any of the other smaller towns around have a difficulty in trying to figure out how to achieve that. And so far, very few, if any, I don't think anybody has actually achieved it. And even the bigger cities have actually got there.
Yeah, yes,
There are quite a few.
Yeah, absolutely. There are cities, plenty of
Which
places.
cities?
10%?
Oh, yeah, there's
Yeah.
plenty of
Who's-
places in
who's-
Connecticut over 10%.
And
Quite a number.
More cities. I don't have my stuff with me. but
Anybody have any idea how many cities or what cities?
It's on the housing appeals.
I don't have my stuff
Sheet.
with me, but I.
So I have a quick question. for you.
Sure.
What makes you interested in affordable housing? The reason that I'm interested is I worked in the mortgage insurance industry for 41 and a half years. I retired in December. And my role was a salesperson. I live in Madison. I'm passionate about affordable housing. I headed up the Affordable Housing Committee for the Connecticut Mortgage Bankers years and years ago. And I feel like it's such an important issue, not just here, everywhere. I'm very passionate about it. So I don't know what I can bring. I don't know a lot about what you just spoke to, but I would be very interested in learning more. But what I do know that I think I could probably bring some different perspective, or not different, just additional perspective, is I know a lot about programs. I've worked with every lender in the state. I know them personally. So I just think I have a different perspective, or
I think that would.
an additional perspective, and it would be a pleasure. So thank you for that.
Yeah, so, I mean, what we're talking about before about this presentation is we have created a presentation with summarizing what we believe is several of the areas where we could actually make a difference in town. The town obviously has to adopt them. So the first step is to.
It's like a long road, but it's
It's a long road.
so important,
Yeah,
so
it's a
important.
long- But I think that is, so once the Board of Selectmen has received that, then it's up to them to make the decisions as to how they want to
Next
proceed,
steps.
what the next steps would be.
Yeah.
And so that.
It's good stuff. Thank you for what you do.
28th of April.
And you
Um,
could, I don't know if you found us on the website somewhere, but we do have, some FAQs about.
Yeah, I think
affordable
I did
housing.
read them. I
Yeah,
did, but I didn't study too well, but I might.
Well,
You don't have to study.
There's not much to study.
Don't have to
You
study.
can- You'll get it pretty quick. So now since we did the presentation, we've gotten some additional information about, more up to date, I shouldn't say additional, but more up to date information about what's happening in the town. So we were looking at census data and from the American Community Survey, which was done in 22. And of course, that was the middle of the pandemic. So it was interesting, and we just have a conversation, and please join into the conversation as we go along. But I think the interesting thing is that the town seems to be seems to have changed in a lot of ways over the past short time, 10 years or so. Whereas there are 3 or 4 different kind of categories of homeowners in town. Most of the residential properties are single-family homeowners, as you probably know. And it's interesting because one of the things that I got out of the information is that there are very rich people in town, as we probably know, and we probably know where they live. Then there is another group of people who are very well off, but not as rich as the rich people. And then there are people who are more experiential and live further up in the town. So, and the town itself has a geography which is very unusual also. It has a huge area north of here, which is much more woody and zoned that way, whereas it gets much more concentrated as we move closer to town. A couple of issues is that we don't really have sewers in town, which means that putting in higher density properties becomes more questionable. And we don't have water, at least not in most of the town. So we've got another issue there. So we're dealing with wells and sanitation issues wherever you are. And that is really kind of forced us into the situation where there's price of housing in Madison is going up enormously. I think the number, maybe somebody will correct me, but I think it was like 57% since 23.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Every place else too, but
Yeah.
but probably more. So here, yes.
So whereas when you look at the average over the whole town, the average right now is fairly high, which is almost $600,000 a year. It's $600,000 in value. But if you look at more areas down below 95 or certainly below Green Hill, it's even much higher than that. So we don't have those statistics there. Another interesting thing is that 40% of the homeowners commute more than 25 miles. So there is more of a bedroom community, whereas when we talk about it being rural, it's now much more of a bedroom community where people are living here, but then, going somewhere else to work. The reverse is true. Since it's so expensive to live in town, the people who work in town can't afford to live here, including policemen and firemen and such like that. So they are commuting in. So it's a very different characteristic than kind of like people have thought of Madison as being traditionally, sort of a little town farming, such like that. It's really not. It's becoming much more suburban.
And then in the current issue too, of the young people, that's just been another dynamic. Like young people who grew up here can hardly they can't afford to live here.
And that's a fact.
Yeah, and that's just.
And then from a, not especially affordable housing, but from the type of housing we have in town, it's a whole group of people who are older who would be willing to downsize if there was opportunities, and there really aren't very many opportunities. So either in rental or in purchase. And I'm sure you've seen some of the most recent ones. I think at least the one that's near my house on River Road, there's one on being proposed on Cottage and Mill Road. I think, I'm not sure how many, it's 4 or 6 units. They're being priced at $1.4 million.
Oh,
Condo apartment. It's like,
those aren't the affordable
but
ones.
obviously the developer believes there's a market for that. So
They'll go like that. Sure.
Cottage, the one with the tree that they're worried about, Cottage and Mill.
I think
It's on Route
35
1.
Cottage Road is an
No, the
affordable
one is a
housing
different one.
development.
That's the other one. The one that's.
On the corner of Cottage and Mill,
Yeah,
that's an
that building,
830G application
Yeah,
Ooh,
that was approved. There's 6 affordable units in there. There's 18 total.
That
and
must be the thing that,
I thought it was are you,
Yeah.
wait a minute, are you talking about the one that's not the one on the Post Road? That's the
I'm
apartments.
talking about the corner of Mill and Cottage,
There's gonna, how many in that little space there? How many units?
18.
wow.
Holy mackerel.
And how much are they?
but is it an apartment thing? with it?
Yes.
Okay, so,
Oh,
because at the table that, at that forum, Anthony and I and another gentleman and then a woman were at the table with Heather, and this woman,
Mom.
Molly, and I don't remember her name. but
She owns property next
Yeah.
door.
Yeah, she
I'm
was
well-
really excited
Yes.
about it, and
Heard
not in a
her
positive way.
testimony.
And it was most of our conversation,
That's
well, her
what Molly was
conversation
saying.
centered around that that, whatever that is.
That parcel.
And I tried to go find it and I didn't exactly know where it was, so I did.
It was
Is
an
it, is it,
approval.
like, there's nothing building there, it's just like a dirt, I suppose now, or
No,
what?
no, it's
No,
got a-
there are two buildings that
Oh,
need to
they're
be
all-
demolished.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right, I didn't know what, exactly
It was
what
approved
Yeah, I'm not sure
in
either.
2023, I believe. It was an inland wetlands application,
Okay,
and then there was the 830G planning and zoning application. Inland Wetlands Agency approved that. They had an environmental intervenor. It was appealed to court. The court upheld the Inland Wetland Agency's decision. Planning and Zoning Commission's approval was appealed to court, and that was upheld as well. And then there were decisions by the health director that were appealed to the Department of Public Health, and then there were decisions, rulings made on those two hearings, which essentially ordered the health director to lift his orders, and so that they were issued erroneous in error. It all had to do with proximity of septic systems to wells and the neighbors' claims that their wells withdrew a larger amount of water, and so they should have been further from the septic system, and that was ruled to not be.
so it's about
Relevant.
Is it to go then?
So, yes, so the developer sold the project to another developer,
Okay.
and
Oh,
they've
that's the
just
developer.
transferred their permits, and he's gonna get started on the
Okay.
project.
So is it like a two-story apartment building or like some?
Yeah, John Matthews is the architect who designed it.
Okay.
We probably could link, if we found the agenda that it was,
It's fine,
they're
I
still
just was
on the
curious, about 18
website.
units, I'm assuming it's apartments or something.
Yeah, up
It's apartments, yeah,
top
sure,
and
yeah,
and
yeah.
bottom, so
I
there's,
think I
They're not-
looked it
they're
up
not-
and it's two buildings?
it's one building.
It's one building?
It's two buildings currently on the property.
Oh,
There's a
maybe-
single family
But Barry,
house.
Are these,
and
the affordable housing units are not rentals, they are
It
purchased.
was approved as rentals. If
The
they
whole thing
change,
is-
yes, if they change the ownership mechanism, they'll have to amend their affordability plan with the Planning and Zoning Commission.
They don't know about that yet, they have not.
I've had conversations with him and I've recommended that he leave them as rentals.
Is it a complete affordable housing or just some
Okay.
units?
Some
No,
units.
it's 30% of the
Oh,
units
okay,
are
got
the
that.
affordable
Okay.
set aside. So of that, 15% are at the 80% AMI
Okay.
and 15% are at the 60
Okay,
Well,
AMI.
we're on that, how about the one on the post road then? That's kind of, those are kind of videos, the ones that are being built. Or at least they've leveled the land so far. The post next.
Well, there was nothing on the land. You mean in between the Hammond Asset Package Store and Cohen's,
Yeah,
those two lots?
Yep.
There are mixed-use development approved there, retail or
On the first
commercial on
floor,
the
yeah.
first floor and 2 floors of residential in both of those buildings. None of those are deed restricted affordable.
They
They're
are,
all market rate.
they're rentals also? I understood they were condos.
They may be condos.
Oh.
That doesn't really, in this particular case, there's no affordable component, so it doesn't
Right.
matter.
Not for us, no. it
For-
doesn't, yeah.
Even from a zoning perspective.
Mhm.
There's some type of management company because of the mixed use who's gonna be.
Is that the $1 million
maintaining the
stuff?
property.
Yeah,
What's
it's a
that?
that's the $1 million,
Million,
it's
that's
the
a million plus,
expensive ones,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, million plus. It's the same developer, it's Stellar's, isn't it? The same people. who
No,
did-
they
not-
sold the property.
Even though they're being called part two, like they're,
The original development was approved 20 years ago, over 20, and it expired. And the whole complex, including the Hammond Asset Package Store, was known as the marketplace. So there's all sorts of cross easements already filed.
including the liquor store was also called the part of the marketplace.
Because some of the access goes through there. So
Mhm.
the permits have not been final. There is an approval for 1339 Boston Post Road and 1341 Boston Post Road. They have not received final state health department approval for that project, and that they have not received approval from the Office of the State Traffic Authority yet. And as part of that development, work is required on the 2 adjacent properties to the east, the dermatologist's office and the Hammond Asset Package Store. And site plan modification applications for those properties have not yet been submitted.
Which is
So
why
they can't do anything.
They knock down the bushes and that's it.
It's all very premature.
Okay.
think it's just for marketing.
There's also, so everything's the marketplace.
I mean, it's just for marketing purposes, that
Yeah.
to
No,
look
no,
like
it's
construction
called-
is
it's called
beginning now,
marketplace, yeah.
however, it is not.
Yeah. And then there's the other one, which is the development, which is even further back, is the one that's gonna be, is being proposed for, New Road and right past the turnpike. And that is going to be a medical facility, or at least I hope it's going to be a medical facility on one side of the road and then on the other. And that will also include some, I think 7, if I remember correctly, affordable units.
Oh, it's increased, it's 10.
It's 10 now,
They're setting aside 10%, there's 72 units total.
right?
And so 10%,
That's
will
why I
be
was
8
assuming 7.
units at the 80% AMI for 20 years, I believe, is what
That's their
they.
offer. That's
I
their offer.
bel-
yeah.
They volunteered
And
that, it
that's all,
wasn't a
that's all
requirement.
rental still.
I'm not sure what
I
they're
don't know.
going to do.
Ask them.
I don't know that that has been determined yet. It will have to be finalized
Just
before.
interesting, because you would think they would want to sort of push the home ownership there, rather than the rental, no?
Yeah,
But maybe my perspective is skewed. I don't know.
yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure whether you think the market is for it, because they were originally building bigger units.
Yeah.
And then now
How do you
they're
compete?
making units smaller, but building more. So I mean, I'm thinking that sounds like a rental to me, but maybe.
Me too. So,
True affordable, like, the stuff that are at percentage of AMI are more often rentals than
Yeah.
purchase.
80%, I don't know. And that's for 20 years, not 30 years. So it doesn't, so then, Aaron, those don't actually qualify against our 10%, do they?
They would for the
Even-
amount of
even
time
though-
that they're
The amount of
deed
time.
restricted,
Yeah.
sure.
So they would count for it right now. I mean, you would
See
say-
why not?
Once they're built. You can't get credit for them until they're actually built.
Till
If they don't exist, then they don't get counted? Oh, okay. Gotta make
I'd send them a whole list
Let
of
me
some
note that.
of
Let
ones
me
that
note
we've
that.
approved, but
Note
no.
that down. Yeah, okay.
So number of affordable housing units goes up, but our percentage
Goes down.
goes down.
Exactly. And that's, I mean, that's the mathematical quantity, and you really can't do much about it. And I think that it's, I will say this, I mean, I think it's unlikely that we can ever make 10%. I mean, it's so, and then the state keeps thinking about different rules and trying to find a way to encourage affordable housing without using 830G. And no one seems to be able to figure out what the code is to do that. So, I mean, I keep reading about the discussions in the legislature. They don't seem to be really supported, by the whole legislature. So I don't know what's going to happen. Probably nothing. Continue.
You're right.
So I mean, it's a real problem because we have really 2 issues in town of affordability. One is just plain affordability, and there is this deed restricted affordability, which is the major focus of this committee. So it can be frustrating at times. I think that our goal is to try to move it along a little bit, get a little bit more. Okay. And I think your experience with the mortgage people, that's going to be very helpful.
Well, it sounds like you're all passionate about it, which is great. That drives everything.
Oh, that's why we volunteered for 2 years. I think we would like to see it happen. And I think it's important, I think, for the town to recognize, I don't mean the town government, the town itself to recognize that things are changing as we speak, whether we control that or influence it or not, that's really the question. Do we want to, and can we influence some of the direction that the town is going in? But if it continues in the same direction, it'll be a very different town than it was in 10 years from now. It'll be very different. Can we, I mean, we only have 3 of us to talk about it. But I don't want to be, and I'm not sure how anyone's thinking about it. As far as this presentation is concerned, I assume we're going to put it up on a screen during the EOS. I'm very happy to start this off and deal with the questions as we go along. But I think each of you should take part of this as well. And I think Peter and Anthony as well, to be able to go through this. And so I would like you to look through this thing and think about what parts of it that you feel most comfortable talking about and being able to explain to any questions that come up.
I thought we only had 10 minutes.
We have, I don't know, we don't know how many minutes we have.
Oh, I thought
All we
that's
know,
what
we
it
don't
was.
even have anything on the 28th of April. Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was, so, yeah, I mean,
Believe it, 10 minutes, I just have to talk fast. That's all.
Jen, do you have a comment as to whether or not one person or 5 people should do this?
I think for
Very good.
just for, smoothness, it might be better if one person presents the slideshow, but then everybody that wants to be can be involved in the answering of questions afterwards.
That's what I meant, Jen, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, all right.
You know,
that's what it's up to.
because there are things that both Francine, Peter too, Anthony and Jane have done the work on, and I'd rather
Yep.
they answer the questions rather than having it all filtered through me.
Mm.
So, so if you would think about what, and we can talk about it later on. See what happens. And then we just got we did get the update on the current affordable housing proposals. Thank you, Erin. Thank you.
I just wanted to mention that I was in a meeting with Carla from Hope Partnership a couple weeks ago, and she was talking about how things have gotten a little more difficult with some federal grants being pulled and a really unstable building market in terms of what building costs are going to be. So I don't know if we want to talk to her again, or if that's all we need to know, that it's
That's really. I mean,
it's gonna get really tricky out there, but
I think if the tariffs stay in place, then the cost of materials is gonna go up.
Well, it's already
That's-
suspended.
That's a matter of fact. Yeah, right?
There was a month reprieve already today, something.
another,
Oh, no, yeah. it was the building industry.
yeah, it's hard to say.
Yeah, so it's very hard to
I
say.
mean, yeah, we can't really control that, so I think we just go ahead with our presentation. I mean,
Oh, absolutely with the presentation, but
I mean,
just
what's the point of
you
even
know,
talking? I mean,
next steps.
When it
you know.
happens, it happens.
Or it doesn't happen, so we can't predict any of that stuff. So I think that's, now that's a whole
Yeah.
separate issue, and who knows? We will see. Okay, then that's it, for the agenda today. Does anybody have anything to say? What I have?
No, I just will make one comment though about the forum thing that Anthony and I were
Yeah, I
at.
thought that was on the agenda.
What's that?
I don't know if it is or it isn't, but
The forum,
the
the
forum that
planning
we-
and zoning had?
Planning and zoning had that forum and Anthony
Oh,
and I
yes.
went.
it's not me.
So I'll just make one comment about, one observation I had, was that, they had, the way it was set up for you guys that weren't there. You know, there was all these different tables and then there was a facilitator each table and so, and then afterwards, each facilitator got up and kind of gave a little rundown of what was discussed at their table. And, I'd say, correct me if I'm wrong, at least 5 times, I think, somebody got up and said, in what part of their summary was wondering, thinking that isn't Ryerson or Jeffrey a good place for us to do affordable housing? And so I thought that was a good validation, sort of conclusion that Jane and I had come to, that would be one of those places or both of those places seemed to be, you know, at the top of the list of places to investigate. So anyway, I just thought that was
Right,
interesting.
and
Would you
yeah.
say so?
Yeah, they would.
Several times.
I would say, I'm not sure
I mean,
whether it was
including
all
us.
affordable, yeah, but they were talking about senior housing, affordable housing.
It was,
I
it
think
was
there was
mentioned as
concern that
as
any
a
of these
site
schools.
that could be used.
Right,
should be
absolutely.
used.
Should be used
Should
for
be
something.
used. Why aren't we
Should
using it?
not be
The one
left
thing that-
alone for 20 years like Academy.
The one that was the one that was really interesting is the elaboration that one of the groups gave, that they foresaw, which one has 55 acres? One of them, I don't know, they used that. Ryerson, okay. That, making like a community. I mean, I thought, whoa, this sounded like the villages. Like, we could have a community and then we could have like, you
That's
know,
right, there was
a
that.
market there. I mean, I
Right, they
was
said
like, wow,
doctor's
they're way
offices
ahead of us.
and a market, yes.
You know, but anyway, it was just an interesting observation that quite a few tables made the
Yes.
comment about why aren't we using the schools? Or
Yeah.
the schools that are no longer, you know, anyway.
And sorry to pop in real quick. I've been sending Aaron, just so you know, a lot of that information that's been floating around from planning and zoning and EDC as a result of those meetings. I've been forwarding it to Mark. And I just forwarded along the sheet that you sent earlier today, the data sheet with where you had compiled the feedback.
Yeah, I haven't released that to, that was just a draft.
Yeah.
Still, to get comments.
Yeah, I passed it on to the other members of the committee. The information you sent to me, I
The
passed on.
summary, so that's a
Not,
summary.
not what she's talking about now. I
No,
heard.
there's been other stuff that Andrew sent out, that Carol sent out. There was with data points just regarding housing from different meetings, like SCROG meetings and whatnot that they've went to, and I thought it was helpful information potentially for our Affordable Housing Committee. So I've been forwarding that stuff along to Mark so that he can get it out to the group, because we have so much crossover going on with the work that some of these groups are doing. So I just thought it was helpful information for them to have.
I think it was.
Okay.
It updated a lot of the data, the information that we had. It didn't
And
really
that,
change the conclusions, but it did update it.
yep, and that will be,
I do have one other question about these forums that are, I guess, being planned. So is there, I mean, I'll be quite blunt. I was surprised that we weren't included in the discussions of the organizations of these, because it's about housing in Madison. So I was just wondering, so now I understand that, I mean, we were told like that night that there's another one planned for sometime in April. Is there going to be on the I don't know, the topics to be discussed, actual affordable housing, to be
So-
part of this discussion?
this is housing in general, that the planning and zoning, because that, as in the plan of conservation and development, it talks about housing opportunities and diversity of housing stock. Affordable housing comes into that, and Carol did have a meeting with Mark to let him know that the commission was going to be having this meeting. And that is, affordable housing plays a role in that. However, the broader housing discussion is something that the Planning and Zoning Commission has to look at for not just affordable housing. So they're hosting these meetings to hear really from the residents what they're looking for and needs of, and what are some of the concerns that are out there? What are some of your questions to learn? Some of those are affordable housing questions, and those can be directed to the committee, sharing information that they're gathering. But it's not like your meeting a year ago was specifically about, your community meeting here was specifically about affordable housing. This is broader than that. And it relates to their, I think you should be involved, but it relates to their update to the zoning regulations.
Okay, but we weren't involved though. I mean, Mark was told that it was all planned. So not to be.
You were all invited. You were not
Yes.
involved
No,
in the
we're
planning of that
invited.
meeting.
We're
No,
invited
it
to
was
attend.
planning and
Yeah.
zoning commission meeting.
Yeah.
So you were invited to attend and participate, but it was not to co-host the meeting. No.
Okay, so there's no plans in the future to discuss affordable housing then under the guise of the housing?
Of course there will be.
Okay.
I mean, that will absolutely play a role in the zoning regulations. They're not there yet.
I would compare about it because I think there's affordable and there's affordable, as we were saying before. I mean, and what people are in a general conversation are really talking about affordable is how can I buy a house that costs less money than the house I can't buy because I can't afford it. But not what we're dealing with. I mean, we are looking at deed restricted affordable, and I think that Francine, that did not come up in the conversation. Because is that if it's gonna get done at all, affordable, deed restricted affordable is gonna get done at all, it's gonna have to be part of this larger thing, and it has to be addressed separately. It can't be addressed as part of the affordability issue, because that means a lot of things to anybody. It's whatever you want to believe affordable is, so I think that's one of the things that was missing perhaps in that conversation, although the Finks, were both Finks there? I mean, I was away.
David was there.
They just David?
No.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I'm a little concerned about, as Francine was saying, the process is that 90% of it is nothing to do with us, and we don't have to be involved in it. But 10% probably does. I mean, somebody has to be looking at these zoning rules and saying, is there something that is preventing developers from coming in and producing an economically viable, affordable housing package?
I think you should be aware and involved in all of it. the committee's made it clear that you're interested in deed restricted affordable
Right.
housing. However, I do think that things like accessory apartments, that's where I disagreed a little bit, that there are, even though it's not a capital A affordable housing unit, all of them play a role in the affordability. And that's a little broader than your scope that you're looking at currently. So yes, it will feel like there's a little bit of a dividing line between the commission and what your goals are. So they have to lead the general housing conversation.
No, of course, as I say, 90% of it has nothing to
But
do with what we're
It
doing.
is your role to help facilitate the affordable housing plan, which is to advocate for one of those items is regulations that can increase the number of deed restricted affordable units. So you should play a role in that sense, as Jen said, in the zoning rewrite.
I guess I would just say, the way I saw the form, everything is coming from the P O C D, but the town has two things. They have the P O C D and they also adopted the affordable housing plan. That was not mentioned. And so I just, that I was surprised.
Well, as I say, it's.
I realize but it's still part of housing in Madison.
Yeah.
We're
No,
talking
I
about
heard what you're
housing
saying.
in Madison. We're not just talking about the P O C D, we're talking about housing in Madison. And there's an affordable housing plan that the Board of Selectmen adopted in 2022, and then therefore.
So did the Planning and Zoning Commission.
I understand. And so I just was surprised that it wasn't mentioned. So at some point, I hope that that affordable housing plan is also going to become part of that discussion.
I think maybe it needs to
I
be
think-
bridged.
Pardon?
I think maybe the topic of housing and affordable housing need to be bridged. What's unclear to me is we have a median price now, almost $670,000 here. And I know that we want more housing. The question is, how much more housing do we think we need in order to make the stock more affordable, to your point, diverse? And I guess we don't really have, I know there was talk about a consultant doing some analysis, and I don't know where that went. I know it was over the summer, someone had mentioned there was gonna be some interns doing.
I think
analysis.
Peggy said they were going to hire a consultant to work with the P and Z to do the analysis.
What the piece that seems to be missing is, okay, how much more do we need and to move the needle on pricing? And that's what's not clear. And that's kind of what would bridge, the conversation about, okay, we're affordable over here and we're 80% or 50% AMI for people and deed restricted, blah, blah, blah. But overall housing, how much more do we really want to see to move that needle? And the demographics of, and helping, what demographics are we helping, by doing that? The families, are we supposed to be focused on young families, bringing more diversity in here? I know it's very bifurcated age-wise. I mean, south of Route 1, everyone's like 60 and older. North of, 95, they're all like, in their 30s or whatever. But it's just not clear to me, the overall, no one has come down and said, you know what, we need like, I don't know, 5,000 more units or whatever. No one has said that. And that's maybe why we're having problems sort of coming together and saying, hey, what is our overall need?
Well, I think you have to look at the demographics. You can't, the town is spread out too much. I mean, you have to look at the demographics. I mean, a house that's on Middle Beach Road for, $2.9 million is affordable to somebody. And we're not going to build more houses on Middle Beach Road. So what do you want to do? If you increase the density of housing, and that's the word that's in the POC and POCD, and is also in our affordable housing, increase the density of housing. But what does that mean? That means multiple, it can't be single family houses. We don't have the area to do that. But there are some questions like if you have a 2-acre zoning north of Madison, can that be a 1-acre zoning? Is that practical under the circumstances? Can you have the sanitation issues and the water issues dealt with if you put 2 houses on the same piece of land? We're now requiring 1 house to be built on it. So if all of a sudden we said you can build 2 houses, it's 1-acre zoning instead of 2-acre zoning, You just increase the number of places people can put houses. So that automatically, that's going to create single-family houses, and that's going to affect the single-family house market. Either will affect it a lot, or push it down in terms of price, or hold down the pricing, or will not.
Yeah, but that's, I hear what you're saying, Mark. The point is, no one has said, hey, we want to see X% growth, and these are the number of units. We want, 1,000 more two-bedroom units. It doesn't have to be a house, it could be an apartment, it could be a condo or whatever. So
You're right, no one has done that at this point. I think at this point, the Planning and Zoning Commission was trying to get to see where people are. What are your experiences with housing? They were very basic questions that were asked that evening. And it was a very structured format to try to gather information. What are your needs or wants to see in the town? What have you heard about housing in town, right? What's out there? And 3, what are your questions or concerns? And that list was longer. And I think those breaking it up in those sections will give us one of the things that came out is what are the needs for housing of our existing residents, even, right? So there are people who have said they're rate locked, they can't get out of their house to downsize. There's no one floor living, all these kinds of things. So now we need to look at that and start breaking that out. Some additional information such as, what are the average salaries of town employees? What are the, where are they living? Trying to get at least an image of where we are. What do EDC is involved, what do businesses need for their employees? Where are their employees coming from? Trying to get that picture and then start building out, okay, it looks like we probably need more housing that can accommodate this range of people.
Mhm.
Where could that go, or what could that look like? So we're at the very early stage, but that's the goal, is to try to get there so you understand what we want to encourage to be built, where we want to encourage it, and then how do we write a regulation to help bring, and what other opportunities, what other incentives can we build those puzzle pieces to draw those developers in to build that?
Yeah, but I think
Karen, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Planning and zoning, when they went through the POCD, I remember they had sessions where they were bringing in like community stakeholders to advocate for different things during that POCD process. And that was they set aside time during meetings to do that.
Sure.
Is P&Z going to do something similar? Because I know, just like our Affordable Housing Committee is vested in advocating for certain things with P&Z rewrite of regulations. I know the EDC has a vested interest in that as well. And I'm sure probably Conservation Commission and all those sorts of groups. Is P&Z going to offer something of that nature again during this process that you're aware of?
Yes, to some extent. It's not a broad planning document.
Mm-hmm.
Like the POCD is, the zoning regulations are sort of a different animal. But the commission is looking, and I think it was a different format for them in this housing forum that they had. And I think we can build on that with some different meeting types, whether it's a specific meeting in North Madison regarding, potential for, a village district or some kind of redevelopment area up there versus, I think, in my opinion, it would be helpful. There were a lot of questions raised, septic or water or, those kinds of things. Well, let's get a septic, an engineer, an expert in here to have a session with the commission to explain that. What does it look like? What is involved in a septic system? What's the regulatory process for design flow per lot, and how does that work? So that they can understand, well, you don't want to set a regulation that'll never even work with other codes. What's the water company feel? If you're looking to expand infrastructure to the north and people say we're full down south, build up north, well, what does that look like? Is that even feasible to extend water mains? If not, what's involved in community septic systems? How do developers feel about that? I think all these kinds of conversations need to come out so that we really can make something that works. That's the whole point, is to,
Yeah, but then who was doing that though? Who was doing this survey about talk to water people about, what it would cost? I mean, shouldn't the town be looking at those things and saying?
that's what I'm bringing up
Yeah,
as
but are you
these
doing it?
outcomes. When these questions are raised, yes.
Yeah.
Now that's where we
That
are
falls
now,
under
is
you,
to
right?
continue these planning conversations.
See, I won't say, well, just want to say again, what I said before about demographics. The boundaries of Madison is an accident of history. It was not planned this way. It was just, they walked around and made a deal. And so if you have and most of the people live in single family houses, and if you have a townwide single family housing, if you townwide meeting, you're going to get mostly single family houses, and you're going to say, what are you looking at? And they're going to give you what they care about. They're not going to address any of the other issues. I mean, that's where I'm having trouble with the idea.
That's sort of the basis of the whole point of these community groups and
You're reinforcing
the
what already
list.
exists. You're saying, okay, we're going to invite everybody in town, and mostly people in town live in single family dwellings. So what we're going to do is we're basically what you're saying is we're going to address all the people with single family houses as to what they think of the issues.
Well, that is
That's
the
been what they
majority
want.
of our
They
residents,
want to get
but
that out.
that's
Exactly.
the point of our community conversations and what we were building on with Ben Fink in the beginning,
But
to find these smaller groups.
But the demographics are different in the groups, and that's what I'm saying is how do we address some of those issues? I mean, shouldn't there be a meeting in North Madison with people living in North Madison about how they see their issues, as opposed to saying it's for everybody in town, including somebody who happens to live in the Bradley, who's a rental, who's renting a house in Bradley. That's their opinion would weigh as exactly as high as anybody else's because they're a citizen of the town. But shouldn't there be specific areas where we're focusing on trying to understand what is happening in the actual
Yes.
thing, rather than these townwide meetings?
Actually, we should get the demographics of the people living in Bradley as a starting point for building potential apartment buildings and understanding the need or the type of person that wants to live in an apartment, and find out how many of them are transient. Are they transient thinking they want to buy something? Would they maybe want to buy their apartment if it was a condo? I mean, that's the type of thing that, I don't know, you got to start with understanding who your community is, and all the subsections and the areas that are growing in influx. The older community, they're going to be here. A lot of people in my neighborhood, I'll tell you, Erin, they buy a house and they die in it. Okay, that's North Madison, probably not so much, but where I live.
But how do we know that?
Same thing.
Well, I can tell you where I live, everybody's been there since the first time that they built those houses, and I'm talking,
Dinosaurs
family.
roam the earth.
I could probably talk about the 8 people that live in 3 lots.
Yeah.
And almost every single one of them, well, not every single one, but probably more than half of them have had that house
And
100 years.
but all you're doing is saying exactly the same thing over and over again, that there are different markets. And if you want to address the growing needs of Madison by asking the people who already live here what they
Yeah.
think,
It's just,
you're not getting
It's
an
just-
answer that
it's
you-
like a survey.
Yeah.
It's gonna come back and
It's a very
say,
good
we
point.
want what we want right now.
the other
Same
thing I
we
would
have
say
right now.
about this whole.
I don't necessarily agree with that. There are residents who have housing needs in our
Yes.
community that are not met.
Yes.
And we heard from them at that meeting. So I think that's a little
But-
broad.
Well, what we're saying, maybe, I don't want to speak for these women here, but the fact is that different parts of the town have different needs, housing needs. And the old people who live where you live, maybe are saying, I would be happy to move into an apartment if there was one, but I'm not going to because I can't. I want to stay in Madison, I'm not going to do that. But what you're going to end up with by having these meetings is simply a reiteration of what Madison is right now. I mean, people are happy. I mean, we did this when we had our meetings with people. Everybody generally is happy living in Madison. No one's really saying it's a terrible place to live. So that's the good news. But the part of it is if you ask people what they have, I mean, this is goes back to the old Steve Jobs. I mean, they say, why don't you do some why didn't you do some market research before you did the iPhone? And he said, because people have never seen an iPhone. They don't know what they could have.
Yes,
You don't
You know,
know what you
that's
don't
the
know.
point. I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah.
the point.
And the thing about, getting people here to talk, you don't need 5 more meetings to know to decide whether or not somebody should come in and evaluate about septic. We already know that this is a problem, so I'm not sure why that's not already happening. Why isn't the town investigating this already?
Or parsing it out to committees like us.
Yes, like, why isn't that
Have
happening?
us do it
This is
for
not a-
our purposes,
it's not
and
a
then we can
mystery.
share the data.
It's not a mystery that we have a water problem and a septic or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And so the idea that we have to have 5 more meetings to discuss whether or not we should do that, I don't even understand that.
I don't,
Well, I get, maybe I'm
I'm
misunderstanding.
not following
I guess
really
maybe I was
what you're,
misunderstanding what was
where you're
being
going
said.
here.
I thought that it's going to be decided whether or not we go have consultants look into these problems.
The consultant conversation is that a consultant is coming on board to assist in the writing, the drafting of the zoning regulation. It's not a consultant who's studying that. That's not what
Okay, then
the
I'm-
purview of that. So
I guess
Just to
your
distinguish.
point was that to determine whether a village zoning, let's say, would go up in North Madison, and whether it would even take off, is you have to have boots on the ground, you have to have that engineer to even ascertain,
Yeah.
whether the topography is gonna work for the density that, might be planned or thought about. That's the type of stuff that we could actually work on if we were to pick one of the sites and say, you know what, maybe it's time for us to bring an engineer. Is there still a town engineer? Maybe,
yes.
okay, so maybe that's something we could do, and then we could share that information and for other potential developments. But it still doesn't, it's still sort of an unknown to me as to, I don't even know how much housing we need in this town. I'm still like, oh yeah, you're a planner, how are you planning? Like, it's like a tidal wave has come, and we're like, well, how much do we need?
Well, and you can't answer that question, no one can answer that question. But I think if you're gonna have if housing is gonna be more affordable, forget the A3G thing, but if housing is gonna be more affordable, you have to have more housing.
Yeah,
Because
well,
supply and
that's
demand, and that's exactly it. So that means that the town should commit to increasing the density of housing in town. And I think what Francine is saying, well, okay, what are the restrictions on that? What are the broad restrictions on that? Well, topography of the land, there are places where you shouldn't build right now. Second, water and sewage, you gotta look at that. And that seems to me that part of it, something like water and sewage is something the town should be looking at their expense and not a volunteer group. Going out there and saying, okay, what would it cost to run the water up, another 3 or 4 miles of a Green Line Road, Green Level Road? And I think that's not something that a volunteer group can do. It's hiring people and saying, okay, what is the cost? And say, okay, in the next 25 years, we have to move water up to farther into North Madison. Okay, that means it's going to be $37 million, and let's see if we can find ways of paying that over the next several years.
Yeah.
Same thing with sewage. And because if you don't, and that's where I'm saying I'm having such a trouble with the idea of having just these broad meetings with people and asking what they think. We want to have more affordable housing in Madison. Therefore, we must have more density. So the question is, what kind of density do we need? And then bring the town in, the citizens, to talk about the things we need to do and get their support for those things that we need to do. But people are going to, if I live living in a house, a single family house as I do, and so he said, what kind of housing do you need? Well, mine is going to be focused on single family housing. I like living in a single family house. It may be that I live in a too big a house and other things like that, but I'm not going to tell you that I think I want to move into an apartment down on Bradley Road or anywhere. But there are people who, and this is maybe people moving into town, be able to live for a little while, buying a condo that costs them, $300,000 so that they can save up some money and be able to sell the condo a few years from now and be able to buy a bigger house.
I'm not sure
That's
there are any
pardon?
condos worth 300. right?
We don't have it. That's what I'm saying. So the only way to do that is to increase the density of housing. And then we should try to manage how that housing that density is applied. And there's some simpler things and some are more difficult. But the big thing is going to be, the infrastructure of the town. And if we don't do that, then we're gonna be in the same town 10 years from now that we had right now. You can't do anything about it.
And I'm not sure that people are disagreeing with you as far as that, but I don't see that there's harm in the commission opening up that conversation and bringing folks through the process. As housing has been identified clearly in the affordable housing plan, the strategic plan, and the POCD. And this is an opportunity, and I give the commission a lot of credit for doing that and sitting amongst everybody saying, yeah, all right, these are all the questions. They've been questions that we've had for decades
I know.
in town. None of this is new.
I know, which is.
And there's been a lot of inaction and there's been a lot of studies. And so I think they are trying to take this as an opportunity to implement these,
Erin, I'm not
the
disagreeing with you.
plan.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just wondering what it is.
Well, that, I think that was the only goal of this first meeting,
Yeah,
was to
and-
connect with the community.
And is there any harm in that? No, of course not. But I'm wondering whether the other meetings are being scheduled as well. The special meeting to talk about, that have an interview with people at Bradley and find out what kind of demographics you've got in the one apartment house that we have in town. You know,
Well,
might be
and
interesting.
Jerry Davis was at our housing forum, and I've been in conversation with
Did
him,
he-
so
did he
we can
explain?
absolutely get that information.
I know we can, but it seems to me that we should have that as part of, I mean, people about that, not just, you know. oops, sorry.
Well, I think the other thing that we got out of that meeting, in any of the meetings, is that the needs really are varied,
Yeah, of course they are,
They're all
because
over.
people are very.
right? Everything's all over.
But we don't
Except-
have a lot of varied housing. We don't have a variety of housing in Madison, and
Well,
so
yeah, we didn't learn anything new
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
at
No.
this
you know,
meeting.
And you didn't expect to.
I get,
you know,
I
no.
get this. I'm not a good, like, let's meet like 100 times person. I'm coming from healthcare.
Oh.
You know, so,
then why
I
are you
mean,
in this
like,
committee?
people are dying out here.
Oh, my God, like, and so, I start to get frustrated with all, I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I'm just saying that I start to max out, like, how many more times do we need to talk about it? We all know what the problems are. Anyway, that's all. It's just, yeah. Yeah, so yeah, the problems are varied and we need a variety of different kinds of housing in Madison, just like every community. And it just so far, we weren't able to seem to really latch on anything. We're just doing a lot of talking. It's 2 years now. So.
Well, that is the political process.
So.
All right,
That's my
and Aaron,
two
we're not, I don't think anybody here is complaining about what's been done. It's just, we're looking at it from a standpoint of what if we want to put in more deed restricted affordable housing? Well, it's a big problem because the best way to do that is to build apartment houses. And you really can't. I mean, there's really not many places where you can do that. Maybe converting the schools, and that may be the only. But if you're going to really move the needle on deed restricted affordable, you have to be able to make it affordable across the board. You can't just have, one little enclave of people who are, somehow or other supported or subsidized in their housing. It has to be across the board. And it seems to me, and maybe it's not for you, it's for Peggy or for the Board of Selectmen, but somebody to say, folks, if we're going to solve the affordability problem, not the restricted necessarily, the affordability problem in Madison, if we're going to do that, then we have to build more housing. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to build more housing. So give us your feedback on that. And if that doesn't happen, then really, I don't think anything's going to happen.
I mean, give feedback on what kind of housing do you want to see?
Yeah,
built?
then we can talk about what kind of housing, but that's the only way, because it's arithmetic. I
Yeah.
mean, if you have fewer houses, you will have higher prices. If you have more houses, you'll have lower prices.
Well, it is the zoning commission's purview to create the zoning map. And
Yep.
that's what's going to allow the uses. So it is they're the right people to be asking those questions.
Yeah.
Where do you want to see density? Where,
Well, I can tell you that no one's going to want to see density in their own neighborhood. So, I mean, well, you can.
Wait a minute, really? Yeah,
I mean, yeah, it's so, I mean, you're just not going to get.
well, there's gonna be some
Yeah.
decisions that
Yeah.
need to be made, and that's where I think you guys come in as advocating for certain regulations that, whether it's a inclusionary zoning or, that's where you can be researching opportunities for types of zoning
I don't know
mechanisms to
that we're
present to the
researching zoning.
commission.
We're researching the kind of housing that can happen. And I mean, if we're not part of the conversation with planning and zoning as they're deciding how to do this, which I'm not sure if we are.
We've met with Carol, I met with
We've
Carol,
met.
but not, you know.
I disagree. You should be part of that conversation, and that's in the plan for you to advocate for. So yes, I do think it is within your purview to be looking at what other communities are doing for zoning to encourage affordable housing.
Well, you're right.
Because the commission will be looking for guidance from you or
Yes.
recommendations from you. If they don't get it from you, then they're going to start drafting things.
Right. We have restricted, I mean, this is talking to many members here, but we decided that we would, not decided, based on the report from 3 or 4 years ago on affordable housing, our focus has been on 830G type deed restricted. And I guess one of the questions that we as a committee have to talk about is whether we want to look at it from a broader stance of affordability. And that one component of that is the deed restricted, and that you don't ignore that, but whether you can look at it in a broader way. Because that's really the issue. And if you're talking about affordable housing, you're talking about other things than just simply 830G.
Well,
But
first of all,
that is what
Right,
we were
and
told to do.
What does that look like?
Yeah.
well, first of
How
all,
do
I
you
don't call it
increase-
830G. 830G is a statute. What I'm talking, what the affordable housing plan is
Deed restricted.
affordable housing, deed restricted. That's different than, it's on.
It's not the appeals process.
Yeah, 830G is a statute and something that that developers can use. I don't consider this committee an 830G committee. This is the Affordable Housing Committee that was put together or commissioned, or whatever you want to call it, by the Board of Selectmen under the auspices of the Affordable Housing Plan. And if you read the Affordable Housing Plan, at least in my opinion, the way I read it, the point of it was to get affordable deed restricted housing in Madison.
Yes.
I don't see that as a choice that we made, Aaron. That is how I read the Affordable Housing Plan. Not that we decided it was going to be that. That's what the plan says. In my
Well, the plan speaks to both capital A affordable and lowercase affordable, as
You don't
why
need-
there was a
but you don't need
recommendation
an
for the
affordable housing
ADUs.
plan. You don't need an affordable housing committee to just change zoning and make affordability small a. I just don't, you didn't need us for that. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to
Because-
argue about it.
well,
I'm just going to say
yeah.
that this is just how I read that plan. The
And I
thrust of
think,
it is.
I think you're reading the plan correctly. I don't disagree with you. What I'm bringing up is the point is whether or not that is hurting the town's ability to deal with the bigger issues. And that there is no committee that is actually looking at affordability the way we might be looking at it right now. And
What do you mean hurting the town? I don't-
hurting, not hurting, hurting HR.
I don't think we need another committee for anything.
No, I don't
We
need,
have so many committees. What we need is a lead entity and supporting entities to achieve the goal. And that's where we're starting to work. Why, why you had that meeting with Carol and the EDC and Peggy to try to be building this,
Right.
this team,
Well, the
because
ED
everybody plays a piece, as
right,
you,
the EDC is most
detail.
focused on just lowering the cost of housing, period. They're not interested in what, particularly in deed restricted.
right, so your specific focus of deed restricted, how can the Planning and Zoning Commission help facilitate deed
Mhm.
restricted units in the zoning code? That's what you should
Yeah,
look at.
that is what we've been doing. That's exactly what we've been doing.
That's not, there's no recommendation for zoning
No.
regulations or mechanisms what are
No,
those
no.
tools that can go
Aaron,
into the zoning
That's
code?
correct.
That's what I
In
mean.
the presentation, what we said is, here are the things the town should do to make it, we didn't say the zone should change, we didn't say we didn't get into zoning, because we don't think zoning is our thing, we have no expertise there. What we're simply saying is that in the presentation, we're saying, here are the things that will help facilitate, and we're turning to the town and saying, you figure out how to do it, and we're not telling you how to do it.
Why can't this committee look into zoning regulations for
That's not
affordable
true.
housing and show some options to the planning and zoning commission?
I
Yeah,
don't-
we
I don't
can,
think
we
we're-
can, wait,
What?
I hear Aaron's point. I think we
I
can
do
do
too,
that.
but-
We just didn't think that was our charge, because it was not mentioned in the plan that we should be looking into that. We felt that we didn't want to step on, planning and zoning toe, so to speak. But we can do that. We can definitely come up with suggested zoning
I
rules.
think some of that is in the plan.
But not specific, but with the understanding that the planning and zoning would take that into consideration, not that we were making them recommendations. It wasn't totally clear.
So they're gonna look to you, I think, well, they'll look to staff and as well, but I think that's a great opportunity for this committee to say, look, this is what, I mean, you've heard from other municipalities looking into what they were doing, things like that, whether who's leading the charge or what. But those pieces of, look, this town has, if all we have in our current regulations are affordable housing district, which we talk about all of our zoning mechanisms in the affordable housing plan, because I did that comparison of where there are limitations in our zoning code to encourage housing. Those are the things to look at and say, well, to get around this, maybe you want to, such and such town has done this. Because right now, the only mechanism that we have to create deed restricted affordable housings efficiently is 830G. Our current regulations, no one will use them because it's easier to use 830G. So we don't have any, the possibility of inclusionary zoning or incentive housing, all these tools that are allowed in the statutes. Would some of those be appropriate in Madison to recommend to the Planning and Zoning Commission for consideration to increase those deed restricted units?
You're saying that the only, so
The
You're saying
Wellington's not an
that the
830G,
only
right?
way
The
that,
Wellington is a planned development district, a planned residential development that happened to be purchased by a nonprofit and deed restricted. It was not
It was
approved
originally
that
going to
way.
be market rate housing.
Correct. The mechanisms that we have, the section 26 and 26A, require a floating zone, a map amendment, and then a special exception. And the statutes allow you to circumvent that way easier. And that's the tool that will be used.
I think, yeah.
We need to look into the.
Well, I'm a little probably, I really want to clarify this issue on the zone. In order to make deed restricted affordable housing possible, you have to find ways of lowering the cost from the market level to something lower than that. That's what we focused on in the presentation. It doesn't have anything to do with zoning. It really doesn't. What we're saying is, how can we lower the cost of a construction? So for example, convert one of the schools that are not going to be used, because it's going to be cheaper to do that. You already have the sanitation in it, you have the water going into it. So that's what
But
we're talking about up to this point. We're not-
density is a tool that can be used to lower development costs for the
Exactly.
developer. So that's an incentive.
But it's not, I mean.
That 100% is a tool, one of the tools that can be used
Okay, well,
to
maybe
facilitate
Jane has
deed
more
restricted
comment.
can I
affordable
ask a
housing.
question when you're talking about zoning? So if the town agreed that we could use Ryerson School to put affordable housing, which would require, it would be dense and it would be, say that it becomes an apartments or condos or something. Does the zoning allow it there?
No.
Okay, so what kind of zoning do they need? Multifamily zoning or less than 1 acre zoning?
It depends what's being
Now it's-
proposed there.
Zone for school.
Depends.
Yeah.
Bless you. I don't, is it an affordable housing development? Is it
Yes, let's
a
just say
30%?
No,
I don't know what,
it's
are there
an
market
affordable-
rate?
an affordable housing development at Ryerson School. What kind of zoning do you have?
But is that a mix? I mean, affordable housing developments are mixed income according to the
Yes.
statute. So
Yes,
that's what I'm
yes.
asking. Is
I'm
it
asking
100?
100% affordable housing at Ryerson School. What kind of zoning do you need for that?
We would have to have a mechanism for, we don't
We don't have.
currently have that. Well, we have an affordable housing, I don't know if it would meet the density requirements. It depends on the specific calculation in the regulation of area and density. We may not have the tool. It may just be an
Jane, do you feel
830G
comfortable,
application.
Leading this charge in terms of.
I'm gonna.
I am not going to start reading the zoning.
Yeah, no, I mean,
regs.
I disagree with the notion that we're supposed to tell them about zoning. I just disagree on its face.
Well, maybe that's a question for the Board of
Yeah.
Selectmen then,
So, I mean,
or for Carol.
if
Maybe.
we come, I mean, I thought we were supposed to come up with what we think would help or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then zoning has to decide first of all, the town has to decide if they want that or not. And then zoning would have to decide what rules they would need in order to have that happen.
Right.
I didn't know that we were also
Well, we're-
supposed to be researching zoning.
I don't
offering
think we are.
zoning.
So I
We are.
think we have a
Yeah.
conversation with Carol. I think
Yeah.
we should have
We should
like
do
a
that,
group huddle with her and maybe on her.
so we can understand
So
what.
we can say, you know what, if we wanted to do this,
Mm.
what would you need from us? What kind of recommendations? What kind of changes? Because we're not experts like you, Erin, in understanding, you know, the area and the density and all the different rules that are involved. So I think we need to do a little side meeting, get some information and figure out, you know, based on the work we've done.
I think it's similar to, you wanted to learn about funding sources, you want to learn about, you know, I think there is an opportunity for the committee to learn about zoning and what is happening in
Yeah.
our region or
I
things
mean, we
like,
could be,
so that you
I think
can,
we do have some information about zoning changes made in other towns.
Oh, yeah, no, we do. I mean, but
We have some-
we never thought of ourselves as saying, here's what
Zoning.
zoning changes we want you to make. We
Yeah.
said, here's the goal that we want you to accomplish, and then turning it over to
Yeah.
planning and zoning or to you,
Yeah,
Erin,
but-
to say, okay, do
to
what you
Erin's
need to do to make it work, you know.
I mean, there's this.
but then that's just I mean, that's the same as reading the plan. Recommending some, I mean, what is the support that the committee is providing to advocate for these things? And I think that
Okay.
support role,
We
This
went
might-
down,
What
well,
support
What
do
support
do we
we
have?
yeah, what support does the,
What
can
can
the-
you're asking what support we have to?
no, I mean, how can you support these regulatory bodies in implementing these changes in?
Well, by informing them as to what we believe, having researched it for 2 years, what we think are
Yeah.
the first things that they should do to make it possible. So we want a housing trust fund so that we'll be able to provide some money to a developer that lowers their cost.
Yeah.
That we have, you know,
But there's so much more to that conversation, I think.
yeah, I hear
Then-
you. I think that there should be some conversations about zoning to see what we could tag on. And also, some of the research we have had some zoning changes that other towns have made, to Erin's point. And then to sit down with Carol and Bob and say, okay, we wanted to do X, Y, and Z. We have to give scenarios and say, okay, so we can learn the right way to make the recommendations to the P and Z. To facilitate some of this. So
Maybe it's a meeting of the committee coming to planning and zoning and talking to them.
Yeah.
You know, like just both groups.
Yeah, I think it's
having
gonna,
a
I think it's more
conversation.
than that, though. I think,
You know, to kind of
That's
kick
a
it off
place
and
to
get
start
some
off.
guidance
Yeah.
from them.
yeah, I don't think they're gonna have answers for us right away, but I think that we can come to some, I think it'll take some time.
Mhm.
But we would probably be able to distill down the data and then say, okay, here are the 3 mechanisms that we think work the best for this scenario.
When that overlay zoning, whatever it was called, was done where the Winter Club is and then allowed Barbary to build houses back there. What was
It's not
that
an
called again?
overlay, it's a floating
Oh,
zone.
floating zone, okay, what, yeah, you know what I meant, I was gonna say, what was that called? Yes, that's a
It's a
floating zone.
PDD, Plan Development
Development.
District.
Can that be used anywhere?
Potentially, that's going to require buy-in from people. So some of these traditional zoning tools of rezoning an area of increased density may be intimidating to folks and not necessarily what the town wants to make a blanket change somewhere. The statutes do allow for the opportunity of floating zones, and that is a strategic tool that is supported by the statutes that you can land to redevelop a specific or develop a particular property under certain standards. So, for example, the schools or redevelopment of something like that, in my opinion, that's a wonderful tool.
Okay.
Or something similar, whether it's not called a play, you know,
Because that allowed,
a floating zone, an affordable housing floating zone, things like that. Those are mechanisms that are out there. They don't exist in our current regulations, but that was a very
yes,
controversial
I know.
hearing
I have a good
process
friend who lives down there.
to change that. But there are municipalities who allow a PDD in any zone, provided certain criterias are made. But the discretion there lies with the Planning and Zoning Commission to act legislatively when they land that floating zone on a property. And people are fearful to give that authority to them.
What's the process for changing zoning laws with regard to, like?
A
so they're
text
going-
amendment,
They're going through, okay, so they're going through the evaluation now, and they're thinking, you guys want to upgrade the zoning rules. So you go through the process, and then when does it, like,
for adoption, you mean?
yeah,
It's a public hearing process through the Planning and Zoning Commission.
so you put them up on the website and say, hey, we're having a meeting, and
Yes.
this is.
Oh, yeah,
what
the
we're
statutes require notification.
doing. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Typically, when we get into the bulk of that, in my experience in doing this in Guilford, we had a consultant who had some public information sessions without the commissioner staff there, basically open hours for folks to come and talk about when they might have been burned by the regs or what they like or what they'd like to see, gather a lot of information, reach out to all the stakeholders who use it, architects and engineers, land use attorneys, all, so specific groups as well as open to the public. And then there's, that information is kind of taken in. A lot of it was staff, where our consultant, we worked to just organize the regulations first without necessarily dropping things. Put like things together, so it read properly. And then there were legal updates. There are things that legislative changes or case law change that we have to amend in our regulations that don't comply. And then you kind of highlight what are policy changes? Are there going to be resiliency policy changes or housing or, certain things like that, landscape standards? And then those are called out, and ultimately a draft is given to the commission to first start looking, and they really go through it page by page. And it ends up being, we go through sections, here's what it was, here's what, highlighted, and you just track all the changes through the process. If they want more information or maps to look at things, those are all, we build that into the process. The housing conversation is really to get to that policy decision of what do we need to add in to get what our residents want and need in the town. There are a lot of other things that need to be looked at in the regulations. Housing is a piece of it. But that's kind of how it goes. And then ultimately, this will include the subdivision regulations also, and which are a small piece. And then, yeah, there's information sessions, there's, PowerPoints, whatever we, some of our plans now, we're using story mapping and trying to look at better outreach opportunities for folks to follow along and to see what we're doing. But the drafts will all be public, every version. And then when it comes to if there's rezoning in particular areas or things like that, that's when I think those neighborhood meetings are great. I like that idea. And I had thought of that right after our last one. Let's go up to North Madison. Let's see if we can use the church hall up there and get people in and make, see what people want, and another, same thing. If it's downtown and, talk to a developer and maybe you've got an opportunity in the apartment, or using those as sort of a charrette. Do you like the way this looks? Do you like this? Do you want, we can really kind of do what we'd like as much as we'd like. It doesn't have to be sitting at this table, just listening to people talk at you or you talk at them.
Yeah.
We can
Well, that'd be encouraging.
engage as much as we can.
I will send this to Carol, ask her. Maybe have a breakfast.
Just not pancakes.
Pardon?
Just not pancakes.
Whatever you want. Yeah, I guess, Aaron, the thing that I'm having still trouble with is like, when you go and zoning regulations are going to determine what happens in terms of housing. Yeah. What is the goal? What are we going to try to accomplish by changing the zoning, cleaning it up, making sure all the case law and everything else, the legislature is kind of, what is the goal? are we sitting down to do these and make it possible for a greater density in the town of Madison or not? And if the answer is, well, we're not gonna worry about that, we're gonna just go ahead and clean it all up, then we're gonna end up with basically, I assume, pretty much the same thing as we've got.
Right, and that's not the goal. The goals are, the goal of the update is to make sure that the regulations are written in a fashion that supports the goals and can help implement the goals of the POCD. And the POCD does, in my opinion, reflect the affordable housing plan as well. That is,
It refers to it.
So
You know, thanks to
the-
Bennett, yeah.
so the regulations should have tools in there. We shouldn't have anything in there that's gonna hinder housing development, and we should have mechanisms in there that people can actually use to create what,
Yes.
you know,
right,
to meet the needs of the community. Some of those needs, as you said, Jane, we don't know necessarily, but this committee knows you want deed restricted affordable units. So how do you put that in the regulations to achieve that, increasing that number?
Interesting.
You want to withdraw your application?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not yet.
all right, thanks, Eric.
You guys are good. You're funny.
5:30.
5:30 adjourn.
I will send this to Carol on Friday. Many members of the committee as can show up.
That was interesting.
Anything else?
Thanks for coming.
Be a bird on the, fly on the wall. A pleasure.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you.
Anytime.
I've read.
Come anytime.
Do they always go this long?
They're scheduled for 4 to 6.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, we're scheduled for 4 to 6, but they don't usually go to 6. But they do,
Yeah,
Go
it's a
till
lot.
5.
So
Did we
it's
end that meting?
we did.
Oh, did you get? No, we didn't.
I'll send it back.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Nice to meet you, dear. Take care.
Yeah, take care.
Good to meet you.
Very nice.